sound of a crackling fire and howling wind. You know, we all have this image of Napoleon's catastrophic retreat from Moscow, right? A once invincible army, starving, freezing, being picked off by Cossacks in the endless Russian snow. The history books tell us it was General Winter that defeated him. The cold, the snow. But what if I told you that's not the whole story? Not even the most important part. The real reason Napoleon lost everything in Russia wasn't a blizzard. It was a single, devastatingly wrong assumption. See, Napoleon was a master of a very specific kind of warfare. He called it the bataille décisive, the decisive battle. His entire strategy was built around it. You march fast, you force your enemy into one huge winner-take-all fight, you crush them, and then you march into their capital and dictate the peace terms. It worked in Italy, it worked in Austria, it worked in Prussia. He was the undisputed champion of the knockout punch. So in 1812, he assembles the largest European army ever seen, the Grande Armée, over 600,000 men, and marches on Russia. He's expecting the same old game. He's looking for that one big fight. He pushes deep into Russia, chasing the Tsar's army, desperate to land that knockout blow. But the Russians, they refuse to play his game. Their commander, Barclay de Tolly, does something that seems like madness, like cowardice. He just retreats, and as he retreats, he burns everything. It's the scorched earth policy. He burns the fields, the villages, the granaries. Napoleon's army, which always lived off the land, finds nothing. No food, no shelter, just ash. Napoleon gets more and more frustrated. He finally gets a battle at Borodino, a horrific bloodbath, one of the deadliest single days of the entire Napoleonic Wars. He wins, technically. The Russians retreat again. But it wasn't the decisive victory he needed. The Russian army wasn't destroyed, it was just battered. And then comes the ultimate trap. Napoleon marches into Moscow, the grand prize. He's expecting the Tsar to come crawling, ready to surrender. But he arrives to find an empty city, a ghost town, and then the fires start. The Russians, on the orders of the governor, set their own holy city ablaze. For Napoleon, this was incomprehensible. He had captured the enemy capital. He had won. But there was no one there to surrender to. The prize had turned to smoke and ash in his hands. He waits in Moscow for 5 weeks, a fatal delay, clinging to his belief that the Tsar will negotiate. But the Tsar stays silent, and all the while the seasons are turning. The first snows begin to fall. By the time Napoleon finally accepts he's been played and orders the retreat, it's too late. His supply lines are non-existent. His soldiers are already weakened. And then General Winter arrives. The cold wasn't the primary weapon that defeated him. It was the follow-up punch to an opponent who was already on his knees, starved and demoralized. Napoleon didn't lose to the snow. He lost to an idea. He lost because he was a master of chess, facing an opponent who flipped the board over and set the whole room on fire. The Russians refused to fight on his terms, and in doing so, they lured the greatest military genius of the age into a trap of his own making, a vast, cold, and empty wasteland from which his empire would never recover.